Everybody, what a blessing to have all of you here, and what a blessing to have all of you online. Thank you so much for watching. The gospel, it's so amazing, but the gospel also has a right arm, and in today's seminar we will learn about cancer and how cancer is actually preventable. And I want to introduce our speaker. Her name is Hernandez. She is a retired staff of Hartland College. She actually taught one of my classes, and I remember very well her principles of medical ministry class. And she's very passionate about reaching people with the gospel. I remember her telling me one story. When she was young, she wanted to help people, she wanted to be a blessing for people and to tell people about Jesus, but she said, I'm a woman, so I can be a pastor, but I want to be a pastor's wife. And God fulfilled her wish, and for many years now, her and Mr. Hernandez are serving the Lord, and she will really bless us today with a deeper understanding of how we can help people to prevent one of the diseases which is killing the most people today. And Mrs. Doris Hernandez will give us the opening prayer.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the kind words and the invitation to be here. And it's nice to see some of you here. And I hope you are really interested in this subject as much as I am, because this is, the health message is really important for us today, especially at the time that we're living. The question that I have up there is cancer preventable? What do you think? Is it? I don't know if this is let me see if this is the one. Is cancer preventable? No, this is not the one. Okay, so, I know which one. There you go. We have an answer here, okay? Most medical researchers affirm that genetics is the basis of degenerative diseases. So if genetics would be the basis of all degenerative diseases, would cancer be preventable? Not the people that have the genes, huh? So if you have the gene for cancer in your family, if you inherited that from your grandmother, your father, your mother, your whatever, then cancer is not preventable, according to genetic determinism, which is this science field that says if you have it in the genes, you will get it. It will be manifested, and you will get it. Okay, it says genes operate fairly independently, continuing to do their thing with little impact from environmental and lifestyle factors. In other words, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter the habits that you try to develop, the good habits and the good food that you try to eat. It doesn't matter all the exercise in the world that you do. If you have it in the genes, you will get it. That's what they are saying, genetic determinism. That's what they are. It's all in the genes, okay? But that's an idea that falls in the field of reductionism. We try to give simple answers to complex issues. So do you think it's that simple? I have it in the genes, so I'll get it. Okay, let's see some other point of view. This point of view is called nutritional determinism. Now, that's different, huh? Not genetic determinism, but what? Nutritional determinism. And I'm going to read this quote. The words in red are from the book Whole, Rethinking the Science of Nutrition. And probably most of you have heard about Dr. Colin Campbell, the one that wrote the book, also the China Study. He wrote this book, Whole, And it says, we start with health. Health and disease genes. So when we're born, we have good health, good genes, and we have what? Bad genes, okay? So we start with health and disease genes. But nutritional, listen to this, nutritional practices control expression of the genes. So the way we eat can control or will control the expression of the genes. Good nutrition blocks the expression of disease genes, leaving only what? Health genes to produce health. Okay? And we see the chart in there. You have the parental genome, the newborn genome. So now the baby has the parental genomes, okay? But depending on, what the person does, you see nutritional interception in there. If you have good nutrition, then you will intercept or block the development of the disease genes. And you will only have the manifestation of which genes? The healthy ones, okay? And so the outcome will be high, good health, okay? If you have bad nutrition, then you don't block the disease genes, then the disease genes could be manifested, and what do we have? The result would be disease. Get that? Good food, you have a lower risk of developing the genes for the disease. If you have good nutrition, you will have a high you will have good health. Okay, so that's Colin Campbell. In his other book, The China Study, it says not all genes are fully expressed all the time. If they aren't activated or expressed, they remain what? Biochemically dormant. And dormant genes do not have any effect on our health. What happens to cause some genes to remain dormant and other genes to express themselves? What's the answer? It says environment, especially what? The diet. I would like to hear you because, this is not a sermon. This is a class. Okay, and I would like to hear you, your input and perhaps even some questions. Not a lot of them because I need to finish this. But if you have a question, and you think it's a very important one, I want to hear it. Okay, so according to Dr. Campbell, it says that the environment is especially important in the development of or the manifestations of the genes. Okay, so environment, but especially the diet. Okay, what we eat, and the Lord in Proverbs 4:20-22, he said this to us: "My son, give attention." So he's imploring, my son, give attention to my words, for they are what? Life to those who find them, and what? Health to all their flesh. Interesting. The Lord is saying, please listen to what I have to say. He doesn't impose. The Lord never imposes. And, that's another subject. But he says, please listen to my counsel. And where do we have a lot of counsel? In the books of the spirit of prophecy. Especially which book we have a lot of information on health. Counsels on diet and foods. And counsels on health. But my son, give attention to my words, for they are life to those who find them and health to all their flesh. So let's listen to this. This is in a scientific journal. Pharmaceutical Research is the name. It was published in 2008 in July 15. And it says, cancer is a preventable disease that requires what? Major, not little or one, change, but major lifestyle changes, many, and major ones, okay? And it says only 5 to 10% of cancer can be attributed to what? The genes. Only what percent? 5 to 10. Some people think, well, if my father had it, my grandfather had it, my great-grandfather had it, I am going to have it. But that's not what it says. That's not what science is discovering. Science is saying only 5 to the most 10% chances that you will develop, cancer because of the genes, okay? So let's see another one here. And it says the lifestyle factors including cigarette smoking, diet, fried foods. Did you hear that? Fried foods, okay? Red meat. Maybe all of us here are vegan, but are we having a good diet? That's the thing, because, I don't know, you probably have heard all these great speakers on the whole food, plant-based diet, promoting the whole food, plant-based diet, and saying, I'm not a vegan. I'm not a vegan, because vegans usually have a bad junk food diet made of plant food. What about French fries? Are they plant food? Yes. What about, you can even have donuts that are vegan. You can have ice cream that is vegan. Are they loaded with nutrients and a lot of phytochemicals and all this stuff that will help us fight diseases? No. So I'm not a vegan either. I was for several years. I've been vegetarian for 50 years, okay? But I was a bad vegetarian and a bad vegan for many of those years. And only about the last 3 or 4 years, I have been a whole food, plant-based diet because of my condition. I will let you know that later, but not now. We have something else in here. Okay, so it says cancer is a preventable disease that requires, this is the continuation of the same. And I'm going just to read the yellow part because we don't have time to read everything. It says, everybody talks about the genes, okay, that they received from their mother and father for this trait or the other. But in reality, those genes have very little impact on life outcome. How much impact do they have? According to the article, very little impact on our life outcomes. Our biology is way too complicated for that and deals with hundreds of thousands of what? Independent factors. It's not one factor that determines our health. It's not 2 factors that determines our health. It's not 7 factors that determine our health. It's many factors that determine our health. And it says genes are absolutely not our fate. They can give us useful information about the increased risk of a disease. But in most cases, they will not determine the actual cause of the disease or the actual incidence of somebody getting it. Most biology will come from the complex interaction of all the proteins and cells working with environmental factors not driven directly by genetic code. Interesting, huh? The genetic code may be 5% of the input. 90 to 95% would be other factors around us and inside of us, okay? But mostly around us, environmental factors. And we can see this chart here, okay? You see the top green chart, circle, environmental, the environment, 90 to 95%. The genes, 5 to 10%. Okay, in the determination of whether we're going to have a disease or not. But then you see the environment, okay? They specify which factors. And they have which one is the biggest factor according to that circle in there, in the environment. Which one is the biggest factor? And the what? The diet, 30 to 35%. And tobacco follows that, okay? So tobacco and diet are Almost the same. And then we have infections, obesity, although, I don't know, but they gave a little percentage to obesity when obesity really, according to many scientific studies, has a larger input on the outcome of our health. Alcohol and others. And then you see the genes, and you see it's only 5 to 10% of the factors of the input. Now, this is another article. This article is it was published in 2021, so it's recent, fairly recent, and it says heredity is not the main risk factor. The association between plant-based dietary patterns and the risk of breast cancer, and this is a control case study. And let's say it says breast cancer ranks as the second leading cause of cancer mortality worldwide. The World Health Organization reports an upward trend of 1.8 to 2% of this cancer each year across the globe. So it's increasing. Huh? The cases are increasing. Let's go down to the other one, the other highlighted part. It says heredity factors can explain less than 10% of breast cancer etiology, or the origin or the development of breast cancer can only be expressed 10% by the heredity factors, the genes, while environmental, reproductive, and lifestyle factors are the main drivers of this malignancy. Mounting evidence from epidemiological studies documented the effectiveness of lifestyle modification, particularly what again? Particularly what? Diet. Again, all these people are pinpointing at what? Diet. They are underlying diet. They are highlighting diet as one of the major factors that determine the health outcome, our health, not genetics. Genetics only what percent again? 5 to 10. The most 10. They said, they said less than 10%. Okay, so. Let's see, that continues, and it says, in a recent systematic review on dietary patterns and risk of breast cancer, lower risk of breast cancer was observed with a healthy dietary pattern comprising what? Comprising of vegetables as well as fruits, legumes, and what kind of grains? Whole grains, okay? What's in whole grains that makes them so good? Okay, the fiber. What else? A lot of nutrients, a lot of B vitamins, a lot of minerals, zinc, magnesium, potassium, not potassium so much, phosphorus. You have phytochemicals in there like phytates, phytates is a powerful antioxidant. So, and that prevents oxidation and the damage of the DNA. So it is important. Fiber is highly associated with the decreased risk of cancer. Fiber. And a lot of people, what they are eating grains, yes, because they are having pizza. Huh? They're eating pizza. So what grain do you use for pizza? You use wheat. In fact, you can even use quinoa, but if it is what? Refined, you will what? You will not have the help that you need to maintain good health. So similarly, according to summary results of a recent publication, a higher dietary colored non-starchy vegetable intake was associated with a reduced risk for breast cancer. Again, some people say, don't eat starches, they are bad for you. Have you heard that? I think you have, because you're living in this world, and that's what everybody says, mostly. Huh? Starches, carbohydrates, bad. Low-carb diet, good. Have you heard that? Yes, you have. I know you do. You have. Okay, but is it true? What is the Lord telling us? The opposite. If you read the book Counsels on Diet and Foods, you know that carbohydrates, but not refined, complex carbohydrate foods are the ones that should have the major portion of our diet. Because what do they provide? They provide, first, a lot of energy, and we need that. And second, they have a lot of vitamins. They also, do you know that rice have whole brown rice have iron in it, and zinc, and selenium in it? But a lot of people think, oh, rice is just carbohydrates, and that is bad for us. No, it is not. White rice is not good for us because a lot of these nutrients have been what? Lost. But when you have the whole brown rice and the whole quinoa and the whole millet and the whole amaranth and all these other grains, what do we have? We have a lot of good health in them, okay? And so while high intakes of red and processed meat, high energy dense and high glycemic foods and beverages were positively associated with the risk of breast cancer. So now we know. Is genetic the answer? Is genetic what is causing all these diseases? No, it's what we have the genetics. And yes, depending on how we live and all this environmental that we are surrounded with, that will determine if we develop the cancer or not. So you see in there, diet and all the cancers that can develop as a result of a bad diet. And you can see prostate cancer, pancreatic cancer, colorectal cancer, lung cancer. You increase the risk with a bad diet. Gastric cancer, other cancers, gallbladder cancer. What about sugars? What do you think about sugars? Are they good? They are delicious, though. And that's why we what? We go for it. We go for sugar because our taste buds are corrupted. Have you seen parents giving Coca-Cola in a milk bottle sometimes to babies? Oh, look how he goes. Ooh. And maybe a little bit of ice cream. And look at his reaction. He loves it. But what are they doing to our taste buds? Corrupting them. Okay? And little by little, we develop this love for sugar. We're not really born with it, because if you see a baby that have not had any sugar in their mouth, they eat their spinach. Have you seen 1-year-old, 2-year-old eating broccoli with gusto? Because they have never tried the donuts. Okay? So it depends on how we are raised and what are we giving to our children. So let's continue here. It says in the same article, the link between diet and cancer is revealed by the large variation in rates of specific cancers in various countries and by the observed changes in the incidence of cancer in what? Migrating. For example, everybody have heard this about the Asian people, especially with the China study, the book, The China Study, while they are eating the traditional Chinese food, high on ice cream, high on red meat, or hamburgers and French fries. No, high on vegetables and fruit. Well, not so many fruits, but high on vegetables and maybe soy products, okay? And so they have a lower incidence. They had, because they are changing, but they used to have low incidence of cancers and other diseases, diabetes and stuff like that. But when they moved to the good old United States, and they adopt the Western diet, the French fries and the hamburgers and the ice cream and the cakes and all that stuff, what happens to their cancer rates? They increased almost as much as the native Westerners. So it says, Asians have been shown to have 25 times lower incidence of prostate cancer and 10 times lower incidence of breast cancer than do residents of Western countries or developed countries. And the rates for these cancers increase substantially after Asians migrate to the West. The first place where they may stop, Hawaii. And what happens? It starts increasing in there. But when they move to California, it doubles, okay? So as they go farther to the west, their rate cancer increases. Is it because it's in their genes? No, it's because it's in the food. It's in the food. Have you heard Dr. Esselstyn when he says, it's the oil? Have you heard him saying that? Because oil also has a lot to do with the outcome of, the degenerative diseases, especially diabetes. But we're talking about cancer. So let's continue this one. Another factor that they are pointing to now, high meat consumption linked to gastric cancer risk. I'm just reading some titles now so that you see that scientists are going the right way. Some of scientists, okay. This is another one. It says heme iron. Do you know where heme iron is found? Where is heme iron found? In blood, heme from hemoglobin. So all animal products that have blood will also have what? What kind of iron? Heme iron. If you are eating, for example, quinoa or chia seeds, you will have iron, but it's going to be non-heme iron because they don't have hemoglobin, they don't have blood. Okay, so it says heme iron from meat and the risk of adenocarcinoma of the esophagus and stomach. Iron can cause oxidative stress and DNA damage, and heme iron can catalyze endogenous formation of N-nitroso compounds, which are potent what? Carcinogens, okay? So dietary iron promotes esophageal cancer incidence in animal studies and has been identified as a growth factor for what? Besides cancer, Helicobacter pylori, okay? Interesting that point in there. So, but that is not all iron. It's non-heme iron, heme iron, the one in animal flesh, is the iron that increases greatly the risk of cancer. And in this case, they are also saying Helicobacter pylori. Okay, but this is from Forks Over Knife, and it says 7 ways animal protein is damaging your health. And it says, today, of course, we know that most protein from both plants and animals are complete. Have you heard before saying that plant protein incomplete? It's not good. It's low quality protein. Good quality protein, animal protein. Low quality protein, plant protein. Have you heard that before? Huh? Okay, but now we know that all plants that have protein will have all the amino acids. It's just that they don't have it in the same proportions as animal protein. But is that good? That animal protein has the amino acids in higher proportion? No, because some of these amino acids that are in high amounts in animal proteins, some of these amino acids that are in high amounts in animal proteins also increase the risk of diseases, especially you're talking here about what? Cancer. Okay, it says, today, of course, we know that most proteins from both plants and animals are complete protein. We cannot say that plant protein is incomplete, okay? Meaning they contain all the essential amino acids we need. However, people sometimes use the term low quality to refer to plant protein because they typically have a lower proportion of these essential amino acids as compared to animal protein. But it's important to understand that having a higher proportion, listen to this, read it with me, but it is important to understand that having a higher proportion of essential amino acids as animal protein does is actually what? Damaging, not advantageous for our health. We outline 7 ways that animal protein damages your health, and that's where we're coming now, to the 7 ways animal protein is damaging your health. I'm going to just read the yellow ones because that has to do with the cancer, okay? So 1, no fiber. Animal protein have what? No fiber in it. Have you heard that flesh meat or flesh have fiber in it? No. The only thing that has fiber is what? Plant food, okay? So no fiber, it has no antioxidants, and it has no phytonutrients. You know what phyto means? Plant, okay? So can there be phytonutrients in animal food? No, because it's only in plants, okay? So unlike plant protein, which comes packaged with these factors, animal protein comes with exactly none of them, 0, okay? Fiber is associated with reduced risk factor. Now, the other one, the other factor that is damaging to our health and is found in animal protein. What's the second one? What's that? IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor number 1. Have you heard of that one? Insulin-like growth factor. A growth factor, what is the human growth factor doing in our body? What is it that it does? It promotes the mitosis, the replication of cells, increases cells, so that we grow. The growth factor is for us to grow. So in order for us to grow, we need to increase what? Cells, okay, rapidly. But when we need to grow, we need the growth factor. But what about having a lot of insulin-like growth factor number 1 when we're not growing? It will induce mitosis, replication of cells. And in that fast replication, it increases the risk of the DNA being mutated, damage of the DNA. Okay, mutations. So animal protein stimulates the production of insulin-like growth factor. When we eat animal protein, we are stimulating the production of more insulin-like growth factor in our body. Do we need that? No, we don't, because what that does is increases the risk of cancer, okay, which stimulates cell division and rapid growth of both healthy and cancerous cells. So if you have the beginning, or precancerous cell, if you have the beginning of some cancer, cancer cells in your body, and you're eating a lot of meat, what are you doing with these precancerous cells? Increasing their division, as well as you're increasing the division of the good cells. The bad ones are also increasing. And so that increases the risk of developing what? Cancer. So eating animal products, especially meat, animal protein, or even cheese and milk also has been involved in this study. You increase the risk of cancer because you're increasing the production of insulin-like growth factor, which increases the production of cells in the body, rapid growth of cells. Another factor, TMAO. This consuming animal protein also results in us having higher circulating levels of trimethylamine N oxide. That's the TMAO, trimethylamine N oxide. TMAO injures the lining of our vessels, creating inflammation, and facilitates the formation of cholesterol plaques in our blood vessels and atherosclerosis. Number 5, let's go to number 5, heme iron. We already talked about that, remember? Heme iron results in oxidation, which produces free radicals, and free radicals are the molecules that damage the DNA. So we don't want to have a lot of iron, especially heme iron, in our diet. We want iron in our diet. We need iron, but we can get it from the plant foods. A balanced whole food plant-based diet will give us all the iron. Plus, to increase the absorption of that non-heme iron, we need to have vitamin C. Do we have enough vitamin C in fruits and vegetables? Yes. So if we eat fruits and vegetables in the meals with the grains that have the iron and the vegetables that have the iron, we're going to increase the absorption of this non-heme iron, and we're going to have enough. In fact, I have seen through my life babies that, especially with my babies, okay, when I had my little ones, they were vegan. And when I took them to the doctor and they found out, at that time, this was almost 50 years ago, oh my goodness, they are vegan? You have your children vegan? What are you doing? They need meat, they need iron, they need... Oh, okay, so immediately they started doing the blood test to see if they were anemic. When they called me, they said, your children are not anemic. They have good blood levels of iron, so that's okay. But they, you know, the first thing that goes through the mind of people when you tell them I'm vegetarian, oh, you're going to be anemic, huh? Because there is not enough iron in plant food. That is not true. We have plenty, because if not, the Lord made a mistake. He tells us in, you know, through the spirit of prophecy that we should, especially for this time, we believe that, or we're getting closer to the end, that we should become vegetarians, huh? And leave all animal products. Then the Lord forgot that we needed that heme iron. But no, he didn't forget. He knows that the heme iron, in too much, you know, too much of it can increase our risk of diseases, especially what? Cancer. Because it's not that good to have too much iron in the body. It increases oxidation and free radicals. Okay. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is what? Good. You have read the book, Counsels on Diet and Foods. You have read Temperance. You have read all this Ministry of Healing. You have read these books. Now, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man that trusts him. We receive the blessing as we follow this message, okay? Some dietary factors that may increase the risk of cancer. Number one, alcohol. Nobody here is drinking alcohol, I hope. Okay, number two, meat. Remember, what's in meat? Insulin-like growth factor, the heme iron. Another thing, fat. What kind of fat is in meat? Mostly saturated fat, which is also increase to the risk of many diseases, including, and tomorrow we'll talk about that, COVID-19. Okay, so let's continue. Animal protein. Animal protein has also been associated with increased risk of cancer. Nitrites and nitrate and nitrosamine, we'll talk more about that. Quick. Saturated fat in animal foods, a promoter. It's not, saturated fat is not an initiator of cancer, but once the cancer is initiated, then it promotes the development. That's animal protein, yes.
Can I quickly ask you how you feel coconut oil fits in that
Okay, it's a good question. We don't have a lot of time to answer it, but it's a good question. Coconut oil is fat. It's just, if you eat coconut, it's different. We have a lot of other stuff in there. It's just like the sugar from the sugar cane. You are getting the sugar from the sugar. Sugar cane is good, it's healthy. You eat a piece, just like you have an apple, great. But if you're eating the sugar from the sugar cane, you're just eating an extract, a condensed amount of sugar that is going to do damage in your body if you continue to do that on a regular basis. The same thing with the coconut oil. It's a fat, and it's more saturated than the animal saturated fats. It has a larger amount of saturation in it, okay? Animal fat, or animal saturated fat, or animal products that have saturated fat also would have more monounsaturated fat, okay? But coconut oil is almost all saturated, okay? Very small amount of mono and poly. Okay, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which are produced when we cook meat at high temperatures, okay, like grilling and stuff like that. Heterocyclic amines, also when you cook animal products or foods at high temperatures. And a low intake of fruits and vegetables. A lot of people today are having this problem. A low intake of fruits and vegetables. I was working for a long time here in Hartland. I retired, and I decided to get a part-time job because I was for a year in the house, and what am I doing here? I need to do something else. So I got a part-time job, and I got it in the clinic. And I see all this food, all these people that bring their lunch. It's sad. It's really sad. Sometimes the lunch is cookies and donuts because they don't have time to, they are running up and down. So they don't prepare themselves. They don't bring their food. So I'm hungry. The donut is there. They eat it. And so, I'm not saying that they are bad people. What I'm saying is the environment is making us do things that are not good for us because we are accommodating ourselves to that environment. And we, are like the Asian people when they come from Asia to the United States, they, get all the habits. They are accustomed, they get used to all these other bad habits. So it says low intake of dietary carotenoids. Where are the carotenoids? In the yellow, orange, and dark green foods, fruits and vegetables, okay? And carotenoids are antioxidants. Low fiber diet, salt, preserved foods, diet deficient in certain micronutrients. If we have, for example, a deficiency of selenium and zinc. Now you probably have heard a lot about selenium and zinc. Now that we're discussing, everybody's talking about COVID. And what do they say about zinc? We need it for the immune system. And what do they say about selenium? It's important to have it for the immune system. And where do we get it? Brazil nuts. If you have 2 of them or 3 of them, just like if you would be having a vitamin C capsule or pill, just take 3, because Brazil nuts are expensive, aren't they? I think they're like $10 a pound or something like that. You don't have to eat a cup of them. Just eat 2 a day or 3 a day. It depends where they are coming from. Okay, not all the Brazil nuts have a high, enormous amount of selenium. It depends where they are coming from, the soil and all that stuff. So if you have 2 or 3 a day, you will, but in fact, if you're eating other things, 1 a day would be sufficient. Why? Because let's say that you also have whole grain, whole rice, you will have selenium in there. What about if you have legumes? You will have selenium in there in smaller amounts, but as you add all this, you will have what you need, okay? Okay, so diet deficient in selenium and zinc. Zinc is also in the grains and the nuts and the vegetables. Dioxin, high in meat, fish, shellfish, and eggs. In fact, I was reading the other day that this dioxin, which is like a preservative they are putting in highly processed foods and things like that, and now high in meat, fish, and shellfish, and eggs, naturally, and also as a preservative. These dioxins are also related to the increase of Alzheimer's disease. Interesting. I'm not going to say more about it because I haven't read a lot about it. I just read that the other day in a scientific article. High energy intake, added sugars, and free fats, okay? If you go to the supermarket and you read the labels, you see the labels almost in everything. There will be hiding in there some kind of a sugar. So we need to read what? The labels. And don't just look for the word sugar, because there is many different terms that they can use. They can say cane crystals. Does that say sugar in there? Cane crystals, that sounds pretty. Okay, they can say lactose, that's a sugar from milk. They can say fructose, that's a sugar from fruits, but extracted, huh? From corn, huh? High fructose corn syrup. Okay, they can also say in there honey, is that a sugar? It is a sugar. They can say agave. What is that? It's a sugar. So we need to be careful, okay? High energy intake, added sugars, and free fats. That causes obesity. Obesity causes inflammation, and inflammation is the basis for most diseases, degenerative diseases. And cancer is one of those, okay? So, and mycotoxins, which are mold, and you can see some in here. You can see in the corn, you can see in that bread, you can see mycotoxins, fungus, okay? Fungus, and some article that is high in aflatoxins, which is a mycotoxin, is peanut, okay? But not all peanuts. It depends where they are grown, in the climate and the warehouses where they keep it, the temperature. So, not all, but some places that may happen. Okay, vegans have lower levels of insulin-like growth factor, okay? So vegans have lower level of insulin-like growth factor. This may explain why cancerous tumors shrink dramatically within weeks of eating what? What kind of diet? A plant-based diet. Because remember, what product is the one that stimulates the production of the insulin-like growth factor in the body? Meat and animal products like milk, okay? But it says that plant-based diet does not, okay? The vegans have lower levels of the insulin-like growth factor. We have what we need, not more than what we need. If those eating the plant-based diet resume their consumption of animal protein, the cancer cell growth starts again. So you have a person that comes to the lifestyle center, and they said, I have cancer, maybe stage 2. And they start him or her for 15 or 18 days on a plant diet, okay? Whole food, plant-based diet. At the end of the 18 days, they see a shrink, the cancer tumor have shrunk. But the person says, oh, I'm so happy, but goes home. And for a while, continues the diet. But then, what happens? I need to try it again. So they try a little bit, and again, they start eating more and more and more. What happens to the cancer? Grows back, okay? Let's continue here. In his book, How Not to Die, Dr. Michael Greger. How many of you have heard Michael Greger? Okay, that's a very important person, huh? And also, a lot of information. So Dr. Michael Greger writes, this is how we suspect plant-based diet, plant-based eating boost our blood defenses. By reducing animal protein intake, we reduce our levels of the insulin-like growth factor 1. After just 11 days of cutting back on animal proteins, your insulin-like growth factor 1 levels can drop by what percent? 20%, and your level of insulin-like growth factor 1 binding protein can jump by what? 50%. So when we stop eating meat, then the insulin-like growth factor 1 decreases, but we also increase a protein that binds to whatever else we have left of insulin-like growth factor in too much amount. And so that binding factor lowers the effect of that insulin-like growth factor. It makes it inactivates the insulin-like growth factor. But that's when we're eating what? Whole food, plant-based diet. Got it? Okay, it says, one of the ways your body tries to protect itself from cancer, that is excessive growth, is by releasing a binding protein, that's the insulin-like growth factor 1 binding protein, into your bloodstream to tie up any excess of insulin-like growth factor 1 to help take it out of circulation. So it's like a truck going around, grabbing the insulin-like growth factor that is in excess and taking it out of the body. What does that? What kind of food? Plant food, not animal food. Animal food increases the insulin-like growth factor. Plant food decreases it, and our body makes the binding protein to get the excess out of the body, out of the circulation. So the insulin-like growth factor 1 binding protein is released by the liver to bind to that insulin-like growth factor number 1. So this may, we read that one already. Ovo-lacto-vegetarians. I was one of those for many years. Ovo-lacto-vegetarian, had eggs and had milk. But what does it say? Ovo-lacto-vegetarians do not seem to have a significant reduction in the insulin-like growth factor. Why? Milk increases the insulin-like growth factor. And now there's a lot of studies. You can look in Google, scholarly articles on milk and the insulin-like growth factor, and they link the intake of milk with the increased risk of prostate cancer in men. Interesting. And also breast cancer in women. Okay, my son, give attention to my words. Remember that one? For they are what? Life to those who find them, and health to all their flesh. Okay, sodium nitrite. Okay, sodium nitrite is a food preservative used in cured meat to, to keep this meat, this red meat, red and pretty, not ugly looking, and so that people can buy it. Reacts with protein in the food to produce nitrosamine, and the nitrosamine are strong what? Carcinogens. So have you heard from Harvard and other studies that red meat and processed meat are carcinogenic? Especially the processed meat, because they have more of this sodium nitrite, okay? And so the body converts the nitrite into nitrosamines, and they are carcinogens. Vitamin C, E, and beta-carotene inhibit the formation of nitrosamines. Where do we have a lot of vitamin C, E, and beta-carotene? Plant foods, okay, not highly processed foods. And the omnivore diet, low in fruits and vegetables, is low on these important vitamins, vitamin C, E, and beta-carotene. And this you probably have read. This is in Councils on Diet and Foods, page 404. If meat eating were ever healthful, it is not safe when? Now, cancer, tumors, and pulmonary diseases are largely caused by what? Meat eating. That was said more than 100 years ago. But we are like the people of Israel. We want the meats of Egypt. Our food from Egypt, we miss it. But the Lord is saying, for years, have been telling us, if meat eating were ever helpful, it is not safe now. Cancer, tumors, and what kind of diseases? Pulmonary diseases. COVID-19, with the pneumonia that it can cause to a lot of people, largely caused by what? Meat eating. Sugar. Remember, we already said a little bit about sugar. But it says here, all cells in our body, including cancer cells, need sugar. But what kind of sugar? Glucose, okay? Glucose from our bloodstream for fuel. We get that blood sugar from foods containing carbohydrates, including vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and low-fat dairy sources. This is not Seventh-day Adventist. It's the American Institute for Cancer. So we're going to forgive them for saying the low-fat dairy sources. Some glucose is produced within our bodies from protein. Eating a lot of high-sugar foods may mean more calories than you need, which leads to excess weight and body fat. It is excess body fat that increases the risk of many common cancers. Interesting, huh? And this nation is getting bigger and bigger. And not only this nation. The whole world follows the example of the United States. And so they are eating the Coca-Cola, and drinking the Coca-Cola and eating the hamburgers, huh? And the donuts and all that. If you go to, I traveled to several countries, poor countries, for, like in mission trips. And I saw, people walking down the road to this poor, very poor, choices, houses, and, almost like little, I don't know the word to use, but very poor places. But they were walking from the supermarket, not the supermarket, but from the, the grocery store to the house, and they were carrying big Coca-Cola things. It's cheap. It's cheap, and it tastes what? Good, if you are used to the flavor, okay? And so white bread is cheap, what, sausages, Spam, that's cheap, So this is what a lot of people are eating. And this is why the diseases, and especially cancer, are increasing more and more. That is what, okay, let's continue. It says, foods and drinks that are high in refined carbohydrates, added sugars, and fat contribute to obesity, which is a major risk factor for cancer. And what are they recommending now? What is the American Association for the American Heart Association? What they are recommending is that women only have 6 teaspoons a day, no more than 6 teaspoons a day of sugar, and men no more than 9 teaspoons of sugar a day, men. One Coca-Cola have 12 or 11, depending on the size. 10, 11, 12, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, all these things, 10 to 12 teaspoons of sugar. And what are they saying? Women, only 6 teaspoons to keep your risk of diseases down. Men, only 9 teaspoons. Okay, but people, when they wake up, the first thing they do is put 2 or 3 teaspoons in a cup of coffee. And there you have a lot of sugar already. Okay, limit consumption of energy-dense foods and avoid sugary drinks. Consume energy foods sparingly. Avoid sugary drinks. Consume fast food sparingly, if at all. Stay away from fast food if possible. Excess energy increases body weight and fat, which increases cancer risk. This is another quote from the Spirit of Prophecy, Counsels on Diet and Foods, page 334. Referring to eating lots of sugar, Ellen G. White wrote, when we do this, when we eat a lot of sugar, the whole system is so clogged and enfeebled that it has no power of what? No power of resistance, no strength to combat disease. I would prefer, it's interesting, I would prefer what? A meat diet to the sweet cakes and pastries so generally used. It is sad. But when you go to, potluck, sometimes the table of dessert is bigger than the table of the savory food. We are drawn to sugar like babies. We need to be careful because it's a factor that is increasing our risk of diseases. Especially, you're talking about our immune system going down. And we're talking a lot about that tomorrow when we talk about COVID-19. The American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, it says this study was designed to test whether this is an old study, 1973. Roles of sugar in human neutrophilic phagocytosis. This study was designed to test whether carbohydrates other than glucose decrease the phagocytic capacity of neutrophils. Neutrophils are the white blood cells that are the most abundant in the body, and they do a lot of phagocytosis. They eat things that should not be there. So bats damage cells, virus, microorganisms, they phagocytize, or they eat them, okay? So this oral 100-gram portion of carbohydrate from glucose, fructose, sucrose, honey, or orange juice. They even use orange juice for this study because the juice is a lot of the extracted. You leave a lot of the other parts of the orange behind. So orange juice all significantly decrease the capacity of neutrophils to engulf bacteria as measured by the slide technique. So when we have a lot of sugar, what are we doing to the phagocytes? We are reducing their capacity to protect us. They get drunk. They call in other articles, they said that the phagocytes sort of get drunk and they cannot defend us. So, and the effect of this high sugar intake, let's say that you have a donut and a Coca-Cola, then you have a lot of sugar in there. They said that the effect of that can last for 5 hours. So for 5 hours, you have your phagocytes weak and not able to what? Defend you from microorganisms, cancerous cells, or whatever. Okay, so it says starch ingestion did not have this effect because they say starches are bad. Huh? It says that in the study, starch ingestion or eating starches did not have this effect. The decrease in the phagocytic index was rapid following the ingestion of simple carbohydrates. Do you know what simple carbohydrates are? Simple carbohydrates is a simple term for sugar, okay? Simple carbohydrates are sugars are simple molecules, very small molecules, and they are called simple carbohydrates. When you have the starches, they are complex molecules, and so they are called complex carbohydrates, okay? Fiber, complex carbohydrate, yes.
How would you rate whole fruit?
The whole fruit,
in this equation?
the whole fruit would not be doing that because the whole fruit has all the nutrients, has all the phytochemicals, have all antioxidants, have all the fiber, and the body knows how to handle, and the amount of fructose or glucose in those foods, in the fruits, and the fresh fruits is small. It's when you make them juice or when you extract the simple carbohydrates that you're having this risk. Okay, starch ingestion did not have this effect. The decrease in phagocytic index was rapid following the ingestion of simple carbohydrates. The greatest effects occurred between 1 and 2 hours postprandial, after eating. That's postprandial. But the values were still significantly below the fasting control value 5 hours after feeding. Okay, so the effect of that sugar, but let's say soy ice cream or vegan yogurt, is still sugar, and it will have that effect in our body. So we need to be careful. Cancer is a preventable disease that requires major lifestyle changes. We have seen already some of those changes. We don't have time to read all of it. But, you know, remember, the way we're eating, the modern diet today is making us obese. And obesity, especially when we're eating animal products, okay? And obesity is increasing the risk of all these cancers because it increases inflammation. And inflammation is a major factor in the development of cancer and other chronic diseases. Obesity and cancer, studies have shown that common denominators between obesity and cancer include neurochemicals, hormones, such as, remember that one? The insulin, what? The insulin-like growth factor, insulin, leptin, sex steroids, estrogen, adiposity, insulin resistance, and inflammation. This is what is happening when when people get more and increase their weight. They increase these hormones and these signaling chemicals that change the internal environmental factor and makes it more prone to the development of cancer. Soy, the soy cancer debate. Have you heard people say, well, if you want to reduce your risk of cancer, or if you are a cancer patient, especially breast cancer, don't eat soy because soy increases the risk of cancer. Have you heard that? A lot of doctors say that, okay? Soybean contains high level of isoflavones. Isoflavones are phytoestrogen. And what are estrogens? Just without the phyto. Estrogens is a hormone that we produce. Not only women, men also produce estrogen, especially, but in smaller amount. But when we get bigger, our adipose cells get bigger, then the adipose cells, the fat cells in our body start producing a lot of, our fat cells are not just storage of fat. Our fat cells are now recognized as endocrine glands, okay? Because they secrete a lot of hormones. and a lot of signaling chemicals, cytokines and things like that. And when they get bigger, as in obesity, they get bigger. The bigger they get, the more of these chemicals they secrete, especially estrogen. Men and women both. We secrete more what? More estrogen. And estrogen does increase, a high amount of estrogen in circulation in our body increases the risk of cancer. That's why women that have estrogen replacement therapy after menopause, they increase the risk of cancer, okay? But when we are getting fat, obese, overweight, and fat and obese, our cells get bigger, our adipose cells get bigger, and they secrete more estrogen. That increases our risk of cancer. But they say, well, soy has estrogen, but it's not the same. It's called what? Phyto. Phyto, remember what I told you? Phyto means what? Plant. So it's phytoestrogens, okay? Or plant estrogen-like chemical. Okay, physicians warn their estrogen-positive breast cancer patients to avoid soy products for fear that their phytoestrogen in them increase cancer growth. Okay, so because they have the cancers have phytoestrogens. Okay, somebody is doing something. An emergency maybe. Okay, modern research suggests that in reproductive cells like breast and uterus tissue, this is reproductive cells, reproductive organs, isoflavones act more as what? Anti-estrogen, because isoflavones, these isoflavones, which are phytoestrogen, not estrogen, but phytoestrogen, they look similar. The molecule looks similar. So they can block the entrance into the body or into the cells. They can block the entrance of estrogen into the cells and avoid the damage in the cell. So phytoestrogens are good, okay, because they act in the body as what? Anti-estrogen, okay. So most research suggests that in reproductive cells like breast and uterus tissue, isoflavones act more as anti-estrogen, while in the bones they have a weak estrogen effect, which is beneficial. Okay, so if they tell you don't eat soy because they can give you cancer, what do you say? That is wrong. They don't have estrogen. They have phytoestrogen, and the phytoestrogen can work as an anti-estrogen. Okay, it has an anti-estrogen effect in the reproductive cells. Soy intake has also been associated with reduced risk of what? Prostate cancer. So it's not only to reduce the risk of breast cancer in women, it also reduces the risk of prostate cancer in men. Whole grains and beans, they are loaded with phytochemicals. They contain a lot of fiber, which binds to carcinogen. The fiber is not absorbed. We do not absorb the fiber because we cannot break the fiber, and it's too large of molecule. We cannot absorb it. So it goes through the alimentary canal. From the mouth, it goes all the way to the large intestine, and in the large intestine, the fiber binds to carcinogens. The fiber binds to toxics. The fiber binds to excess cholesterol. And what does it do? It takes it out of the system because it's going out of the body. And so what we're doing when we eat refined products and a lot of meat, we don't have fiber. We don't have fiber. So what are we doing? We're not going to have that protection, that cancer binding effect or carcinogen binding effect of fiber. We're not going to have it if we are eating everything refined. Okay, so it also, whole grains contain phytates. I mentioned that in the beginning. Phytate is a phytochemical which is an antioxidant, and it boosts the activity of the natural killer cells. Natural killer cells are cells of the innate immune system that we have. We're born with them. They defend us. They try to kill. That's why they're called natural killer cells. They kill microorganisms that invade, or parts of non-self that invade the body. But what happens is, it says, they boost. Phytates boost the activity of the natural killer cells, and also phytates block angiogenesis. Angiogenesis is the production of blood vessels. And when you are growing a tumor, that tumor needs what? Blood to grow. It needs to be nourished. So the tumor induces angiogenesis, okay? Let's make what? Blood vessels so that the tumor can be fed. But it says here that phytates does what? Phytates block angiogenesis. So if there is no new vessels growing for the tumor, what happens to the tumor that is growing? It's going to die. It cannot grow. So we need this phytate, okay, to protect us also. It's another factor that will protect us. It provides, the whole grains and beans provide selenium, which is a powerful antioxidant. They also provide what other two minerals? Zinc and magnesium, which both of them, the three of them, boost the immune system. Tomorrow we'll talk about that. Contain tocotrienols and tocopherols, also antioxidants. Contain phytoestrogen, block the estrogen pathway, which lowers the risk of breast, uterine, and prostate cancer. So even whole grains can help us and protect us against this cancer. And contain plant sterols. How dietary fiber lowers the risk of cancer? Well, I already mentioned that, so we're not going to go. But the number 5, we're going to read that. Okay, number 5. Fiber, okay, as the microbiome in the large intestine, microbiome is that bacteria, and we have the largest amount of microbiota, we have it in the large intestine, okay? The larger amount, we have more than 100 trillion bacteria, and not only bacteria, but microbes, named as the microbiome in our body, the microbiota or microbiome in our body, more than 100 trillion cells. It's more than us, okay? The bacteria in our body is more than us, okay? But it says that as the microbiome in the large intestine ferments the fiber, because the fiber that goes to the large intestine, especially the soluble fiber, it serves as food for the microbiome or the microbiota. So the microbiota, especially the good one, the one that protects us, not the pathogens, not the ones that produce diseases, but the ones that defend us against diseases, that the fiber is the food for them. And the more fiber they have, the more the microbiota, the good one, develops. And we are protected from diseases, okay? So fiber increases satiation and satiety. Therefore, we eat less and maintain healthy weight, less body fat, and lower risk of cancer. Remember, the more fat we have in the body, the more estrogen and other cytokines and inflammatory chemicals we produce. The gut microbiota, remember? I just mentioned that one, the gut microbiota, these microbes. Time is up, we are told. So I think we are going to, we'll only have one more here. A varied whole food plant-based diet is higher in fiber. A high fiber diet literally feeds and makes the mutualistic bacteria thrive. This is the one that helps us and protects us. So what are we to do? Aim to meet most nutritional needs through what? Diet, not supplement. Because some people say, oh, let's take supplement. We can eat whatever and have supplements. It doesn't work like that, because the supplement is only one thing. In the fruit or the vegetables or the grains, you have a lot of things that sometimes we don't even know, because the science of nutrition doesn't know everything that is in food and the way the body handles everything. So supplements are not the solution. What we need to do is to change our diet and follow the Lord's counsel. And my son, give attention to my words, for they are what? Life to those who find them, and health to all their flesh. And so what I want you to learn today is clean your diet, not your colon. Clean your diet. If you clean your diet, your colon will also be healthy, and you have the results in all your body. May the Lord help us to follow and trust in Him, because those that trust in Him will be blessed. Should we finish with prayer? We go to our knees. Dear Father in heaven, we are thankful for the health reform message. We are thankful because you took time to give us a lot of light for these days, to protect us, to keep us safe, to help us bring honor and glory with our health in our message. Father, we pray that you help us obey, that you help us trust you, that we can have the blessing that you promise to give to those that follow your counsel. Father, thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here this afternoon and learn a little bit about how to prevent this horrible disease, the disease of cancer, that is killing millions of people around the world every year. I pray, Lord, that you help us to obey you, to glorify your name with our health, and to spread this message to our friends and family and anybody that come in contact with us. And not only help us preach this message, but live it. And we pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Wow, isn't it powerful how God can actually help us prevent cancer and, live a better life by simple methods? And I know that most of us, or all of us here, know about these things, but there is sometimes a big distance between knowing and doing. So let's try to walk that distance and to eat healthier, and to also help others to eat healthier, so that they can also have clear minds, so they can communicate with God. Thank you so much for watching online. And I'm looking forward to see all of you here. And I'm also speaking for the guests online, because our next presenter will be Christopher Hartland, Senior Evangelist of Hope Channel, and also President-elect of Hope 365 School of Evangelism. And until there, I also invite the people here to check out our booths, especially the booths which are owned by our students, and to be blessed by blessings in a physical manner, not just spiritual blessings. See you all at